The moment you stop chasing, life starts chasing you. Napoleon Hill revealed this secret, and almost no one understands it. Have you ever noticed how the more you try to control everything, the more life seems to slip through your fingers? You push, you plan, you insist, and still, nothing flows. Spiritual anxiety grows, the mind never rests, and it feels like you're always chasing something that never arrives. Maybe the problem isn't a lack of effort, but too much effort. There's an invisible point where letting go of control stops being weakness and becomes power. What almost no one tells you is that stopping the chase might be exactly what was missing for everything to start arriving. It sounds contradictory, I know. The mind was trained to believe that only those who push harder, insist longer, and never stop are the ones who win. But what if real progress comes when you trust the process, quiet your heart, and allow life to respond? This is where practical faith, trust in God, and an understanding of divine timing come in. In this content, you'll begin to understand why when you let go, everything arrives, how biblical law of attraction works in real life, and why living as if you already have completely changes your vibrational frequency. This is not about giving up on your dreams, it's about stopping yourself from suffocating them. If you feel like you've been forcing too much, begging too much, or trying too hard to prove something, maybe it's time to hear something that can change everything. Trust and see what happens. There's a curious point in life where the more effort you apply, the fewer results you see. You wake up determined, make plans, try to let go of control, then catch yourself forcing again. The mind shifts into urgency mode, the heart tightens, and it feels like you're pushing a door that should open on its own. That's the paradox: too much effort creates resistance. And resistance blocks the natural flow of life. When you insist from a place of spiritual anxiety, the body feels it, the mind becomes confused, and inner peace disappears. It's like trying to hold sand tightly in your hand. The harder you squeeze, the more it slips away. Life works the same way. Excessive control creates tension, and tension does not coexist with faith and trust. That's why so many people do everything right and still feel like nothing moves forward. The invitation here is simple, but deep: stop forcing and observe. When you replace desperation with presence, something shifts inside. The subconscious mind relaxes, the heart slows down, and you begin to trust the process instead of fighting it. This isn't passivity, it's emotional and spiritual intelligence. And this subtle adjustment prepares the ground for the next step: understanding why surrender changes everything. Spiritual surrender is not crossing your arms and waiting for a miracle to fall from the sky. Surrender means acting with intention while allowing yourself to receive without suffocating the outcome. When you choose to let go of control, something profound happens: the mind slows down, the heart aligns, and life finds space to flow. This is when you let go, everything arrives, stops being a nice phrase and becomes a lived experience. Many people confuse surrender with weakness because they were taught to live in survival mode. But true surrender is quiet strength. It is born from emotional detachment and trust in God, not from giving up. Think of simple practices: writing your intentions in the morning, saying a short and sincere prayer, and then going through the day without obsessing over what if. That's practical faith applied to daily life. When you stop fighting the invisible, your vibrational frequency shifts. The body relaxes, the subconscious mind understands it doesn't need to stay on alert, and creativity returns. Surrender opens doors that brute effort can't reach. And as you feel that relief, the next reflection naturally arises: why does trust transform so much, while desperation only pushes things away? There is a huge energetic difference between trust and desperation. Desperation runs, demands, and asks for immediate signs. Trust walks, observes, and breathes. When you live in desperation, even prayer turns into disguised pressure, feeding spiritual anxiety. Trust in God, on the other hand, is born when you understand that what is meant for you doesn't require desperation, only alignment. Desperation says, I need it now. Trust says, I know it's coming. This inner shift is subtle, but powerful. Try something practical. When you feel your mind speeding up, quietly repeat, I trust the process. It sounds simple, but it reorganizes the subconscious mind and pulls you out of survival mode. Trusting doesn't mean denying pain, it means not letting pain drive your decisions. When you choose trust over desperation, life responds differently. People feel it. Opportunities move closer. The heart settles. Stop chasing and everything arrives, not because you gave up, but because you stopped begging. And when trust begins to replace fear, a natural need for silence appears, that inner space where divine action takes place. There is a kind of silence that isn't empty, it's presence. Inner silence happens when you stop reacting to everything and start listening to what truly matters. In that space, the mind slows down, the heart organizes itself, and trust in God stops being an idea and becomes a felt experience. It's fascinating how, when internal noise fades, answers appear more clearly. Many people think God speaks in chaos, but most often he reveals himself in calm. When you try to control every detail, there's no space left to notice subtle signs. A simple practice helps: set aside a few minutes each day with no phone, no music, no stimulation. Breathe deeply and simply be. This habit strengthens inner peace and reduces the spiritual anxiety that drains energy. Silence isn't passivity, it's alignment. It's where divine action finds a path. When you quiet yourself, stop forcing, and choose to trust the process, something rearranges within you. Intuition sharpens, decisions feel lighter, and the sense of being guided grows. This state prepares the heart to understand something essential: faith is not talk, it's daily practice. Practical faith isn't just believing, it's living according to what you believe. It's waking up, doing what's within your reach, and trusting the process without carrying the weight of the outcome on your shoulders. When the Bible speaks about faith and trust, it points to a simple, consistent daily posture. It's not about beautiful words, it's about coherent actions that generate inner peace. In real life, faith means choosing to stop chasing with anxiety and start acting with presence. It means praying, yes, but also taking care of what has already been placed in your hands. It means giving thanks before seeing, allowing yourself to receive without guilt, and remembering that what is yours does not require desperation. Small habits help: starting the day with gratitude, reading something inspiring, writing clear intentions, and moving through the day with lightness. When faith leaves the speech and enters the routine, something shifts in the subconscious mind. It starts working for you, not against you. Doubt loses strength, fear weakens, and the sense of being supported grows. Trust and receive stops being a slogan and becomes a lived practice. And once you experience faith in motion, curiosity naturally arises about how the mind and faith connect so powerfully. Napoleon Hill taught that the human mind releases its true power only when faith and thought walk together. For him, it wasn't enough to desire, you needed a definite purpose and action without anxiety. When you insist too much, the mind enters conflict. But when you let go of control while maintaining clarity of intention, the subconscious mind starts working in your favor. Hill explained that faith doesn't function well under emotional pressure. Constant tension weakens creativity and sabotages results. That's why he emphasized spiritual self-confidence and inner calm. Reading works like Think and Grow Rich with practical attention, taking notes and applying small daily actions helps transform theory into real, practical faith. When thought, emotion, and action align, your vibrational frequency changes. You stop begging and start magnetizing. Stop forcing, Hill taught in many ways, because a confident mind is far more effective than a desperate one. This understanding opens the door to a delicate realization: excessive control is born from fear and fear blocks everything. Excessive control rarely comes from organization, it comes from fear. Fear of losing, failing, or not being enough. When you try to control everything, you're essentially telling yourself that you don't trust life, God, or yourself. This inner conflict fuels the battle between control and faith, resulting in tension, exhaustion, and blocked flow. Look at daily life. The more you try to predict every detail, the more anxious the mind becomes. Spiritual anxiety installs itself quietly, disguised as responsibility or being realistic. A simple practice helps break this cycle. Consciously choose one small area where you will not control, one conversation, one outcome, one deadline, and simply trust. This trains your emotional system to relax. When you reduce control, you don't lose power, you gain clarity. Fear decreases, inner peace increases, and your energy shifts. The power of letting go is exactly here. You stop wasting energy trying to hold the world together and start directing it toward living with presence. This relief opens space to understand something essential. Letting go is not abandoning, it's changing how you walk. Many people resist letting go because they confuse surrender with abandonment. But letting go of control doesn't mean stopping action, it means stopping self-torture. You keep doing your part, you just stop carrying the weight of controlling the outcome. This shift soothes the mind, calms the heart, and strengthens trust in God. Letting go is an energetic shift. It's moving from the posture of begging to the posture of trusting. Don't beg, align. Do what's within your reach today, with presence and honesty, and leave the rest to divine timing. A simple practice is writing, "I did my best today," at the end of the day. This helps the subconscious close cycles without guilt. When you understand that what is yours doesn't require desperation, life becomes lighter. You stop chasing and start attracting. When you let go, everything arrives not by magic, but because you stopped blocking the flow. This understanding prepares the ground for something deeper: the importance of being emotionally and spiritually whole. Being whole means stopping the habit of breaking yourself to fit expectations. It's when you stop abandoning yourself to please others and start standing in truth. Emotional wholeness begins when you recognize this: you are already enough. You don't need to prove, beg, or shrink. This posture strengthens spiritual self-confidence and creates deep inner coherence. When you are whole, decisions become clearer. You stop accepting emotional crumbs, avoid unnecessary conflicts, and don't trade your values for fear of loss. This is emotional detachment in practice. A simple exercise is noticing where you say yes when you want to say no. Adjusting this gradually restores personal power and reinforces inner peace. Wholeness changes the energy you bring into the world. Whole people don't chase, they emanate. Stop chasing and everything arrives, because now you vibrate truth, not lack. This naturally leads to the next understanding: why self-love becomes a silent magnetic force that attracts what aligns. Self-love doesn't make noise, but it moves everything. When you respect yourself, the world feels it. It is the foundation of spiritual self-confidence and the point where neediness loses power. People who love themselves don't beg, diminish themselves, or force connections. They live aligned, and that activates a vibrational frequency that attracts what is real. In practice, self-love is daily care. Sleeping better, saying no when needed, choosing environments that strengthen rather than drain you. A simple habit is treating yourself the way you would treat someone you love, with patience and respect. This behavior reprograms the subconscious mind and strengthens the sense of deservingness, which is essential for allowing yourself to receive. As self-love grows, the chase fades. Stop forcing what matches you will naturally approach. What is yours doesn't require desperation, it requires alignment. This silent magnetism opens space for an essential topic: how the mindset you cultivate determines whether life flows in scarcity or abundance. The way you think shapes the way you live. A scarcity mindset makes you believe there's never enough time, love, opportunity. An abundance mindset starts from the understanding that life is movement and expansion is possible. When you live in scarcity, you try to control everything. When you choose abundance, you learn to trust the process. In daily life, scarcity appears in automatic thoughts like "this isn't for me" or "this is too hard." Abundance shows up when you shift the inner dialogue to "there are paths I haven't seen yet." A simple exercise is observing how you talk about money, relationships, and the future. Your language reveals whether you're living in fear or trust, control or faith. When the mind opens to abundance, the subconscious begins searching for solutions instead of threats. Energy shifts, the body relaxes, and choices become wiser. Calm the mind and attract abundance isn't a motivational phrase, it's a daily practice. This new perspective prepares you to understand something vital: gratitude as a sustaining frequency. Gratitude isn't just a nice feeling, it's a frequency choice. When you give thanks even before everything is resolved, you signal trust. This is where biblical law of attraction stops being theory and becomes spiritual practice. Gratitude removes focus from lack and anchors the mind in what is already alive, working, and moving. Practically, gratitude is training. Start small. Upon waking, acknowledge 3 simple things: a breathing body, a new day, a chance to begin again. This calms the mind, reduces spiritual anxiety, and strengthens inner peace. The subconscious mind interprets this as safety and begins cooperating rather than resisting. When you vibrate gratitude, you allow yourself to receive. Flow opens because you stopped demanding and started trusting. Trust and receive is not passivity, it's alignment. This naturally leads to the next step: acting as if you have already received, not through illusion, but through inner coherence. Acting as if you have already received isn't pretending, it's internal alignment. It's living with the posture of trust before seeing results. When you live as if you already have, your choices change. You take better care of what you have, speak more clearly, and act more responsibly. This coherence reduces spiritual anxiety and strengthens practical faith. Observe your habits. If you desire prosperity, treat your current resources with respect, even if they are limited. If you desire healthy relationships, act with self-respect and clear boundaries. Small actions communicate to the subconscious that you are ready to receive. That's how vibrational frequency adjusts without force. When you act from trust, life responds. Stop chasing and everything arrives, because you leave scarcity mode and enter presence. It's not about speeding up results, it's about sustaining a stable posture while the process unfolds. And this stability leads naturally to the next reflection: coherence between belief, thought, and action. Coherence is when what you believe, think, and do move together. You can't speak about faith while acting from fear. The mind perceives this contradiction and responds with confusion. When you align faith, thought, and action, the subconscious understands safety and spiritual anxiety decreases automatically. Practically, coherence begins with small choices. Notice whether your daily actions reflect trust in God or constant attempts to control. Replacing urgency with presence, impulse with awareness, is already a major step. Stop forcing doesn't mean stop acting, it means acting without inner war. When coherence is present, energy stabilizes. You no longer swing so intensely between hope and fear. The power of letting go is revealed here. You do your part and trust the rest. This state prepares the ground for something special, where trust stops being an idea and becomes fertile soil for miracles. Nothing grows in rigid soil. Trust is the ground where good things take root. When you choose to trust the process, the body relaxes, the mind organizes, and life finds room to act. Miracles don't happen in haste or desperation, they arise where there is openness, faith, and consistent trust. In practice, trusting means continuing to do what must be done without carrying tomorrow's weight. It's acting today with presence and leaving results to divine timing. A simple exercise is starting the day by saying, "I do my part and trust the rest." This re-educates the subconscious and reduces the need for constant control. When trust becomes habit, you begin to notice signs, encounters, and solutions emerging naturally. When you let go, everything arrives because the flow no longer meets resistance. It's not magic, it's alignment. And as this inner security grows, another lesson emerges: the importance of calm and presence in the now. Calm isn't the absence of problems, it's the presence of awareness. When you anchor yourself in the now, the mind stops traveling between fear of the future and guilt of the past. Presence dissolves spiritual anxiety and strengthens inner peace. It's in the now that you truly trust the process. Calm can be trained. Deep breathing, conscious pauses, and mindful attention to simple activities like walking or eating remind the body that there is no immediate danger. These moments reprogram the subconscious and reduce the urge to control. Calm the mind and attract abundance starts with simple choices. When you live in the present, life flows more smoothly. Decisions become clearer, emotions stabilize, and trust grows. Stop forcing tomorrow and be fully present today. This posture prepares you to notice a crucial difference: there is a mind that receives, and there is a mind trapped in anxiety. The anxious mind is always chasing something. It asks, when? How? And what if it doesn't work? The receptive mind moves at a different rhythm. It does what it can today and allows itself to receive the rest. The difference isn't intelligence, it's inner posture. The receptive mind trusts, the anxious mind controls. In practice, the anxious mind closes doors without noticing. It demands immediate answers, constant signs, and guarantees. This feeds spiritual anxiety and blocks flow. The receptive mind chooses inner silence, observes more, and reacts less. A helpful exercise is noticing when you're overthinking and consciously releasing the thought. When you train your mind to receive, life responds with more ease. Stop chasing and everything arrives because there is now internal space. The mind relaxes, vibrational frequency adjusts, and solutions appear unexpectedly. This contrast reveals something important: there are invisible blocks that prevent full surrender, and that's what comes next. Many people say they trust, but deep down they're still holding everything tightly. Blocks to surrender often disguise themselves as caution, responsibility, or being realistic. But underneath, it's fear of losing control. That silent conflict between control and faith, where the mind demands certainty and the heart longs for rest. A common block is believing that letting go means becoming passive. Not true. Letting go of control means stopping force, not stopping action. You do your part without desperation, without begging, without negotiating with God. When emotional detachment is present, energy shifts. The body relaxes, the mind clears, and spiritual surrender becomes daily practice. Another strong block is the belief of unworthiness. When someone doesn't believe they are enough, they enter constant effort mode. But remember this: what is meant for you doesn't require desperation. Identifying these blocks is the first step toward truly allowing yourself to receive. Once they begin to fall, it becomes easier to shift focus from outcome back to process. When the mind becomes obsessed with results, it loses the present moment. That's where rush, frustration, and the feeling of never enough are born. Focusing on the process teaches something simple and powerful: do your best now, and release the rest. This reduces anxiety and strengthens practical faith. You learn to trust while walking. In real life, this shows up in small habits. Reading a few pages a day instead of rushing through a book. Praying, meditating, or sitting in silence without demanding immediate sensations. When you choose to trust the process, something interesting happens: the path starts adjusting you internally before adjusting external circumstances. Results are consequences, not direct targets. When you live as if you already have, energy shifts. Live as someone who already has, not someone who lacks. This constant focus on the present prepares you for something greater because it teaches active patience. And that leads naturally to an essential theme: continuing forward without forcing, calmly and consistently. Persistence is not tension-based insistence. Patient persistence is continuing to do what must be done, even without immediate applause. It's quiet consistency that doesn't seek attention but builds solid results. Here, faith stops being emotion and becomes daily posture, aligned with divine timing. Many people quit too soon because they confuse delay with denial. In reality, the process is working in invisible layers: mental, emotional, spiritual. When you maintain calm action without forcing, the subconscious mind starts accepting the new reality as possible. This strengthens spiritual self-confidence and reduces the need for control. Persisting with patience means trusting even when nothing seems to change. It's waking up, doing your part, and internally saying, "Everything is moving, even if I can't see it." This posture sustains inner peace and prepares the ground for deep transformation. And when change begins inside, one thing is inevitable: you are no longer the same person. Before life changes externally, something always shifts internally. Inner transformation happens when you realize you no longer need to prove anything or chase everything. When you stop chasing, the mind relaxes and the heart becomes coherent. This is where faith and trust stop being ideas and become lived experiences. This transformation is rarely loud. It shows up in different reactions: less impulsiveness, more clarity, more inner silence. Situations that once stole your peace now pass with less weight. This is emotional and spiritual maturity. You begin to understand in real life that when you let go, everything arrives at the right time and in the right way. What's most interesting is that when you change internally, you start attracting experiences that match this new frequency. Abundance mindset replaces scarcity, and life responds with synchronicities. This internal shift creates the perfect setting to understand something deeper: not everything happens when we want, but everything happens at the exact moment it should. One of the greatest spiritual lessons is accepting that there is a rhythm beyond our urgency. Divine timing never rushes or delays, it aligns. When you try to accelerate everything, you clash with this natural flow. But when you choose to trust the process, anxiety decreases and trust in God strengthens. The problem isn't waiting, it's waiting with resistance. The anxious mind suffers because it wants control, while true faith rests. Control versus faith is a daily choice. You can show your mind that it's okay not to know the next step right now. This inner rest opens space for clearer decisions and more aligned actions. When you accept divine timing, something shifts: you stop begging and start trusting. Don't beg, align. What is meant for you meets you at the right time, without excessive effort. This understanding prepares the heart for an essential movement: letting go consciously, not from exhaustion, but from choice. Letting go doesn't happen by accident, it happens by decision. At some point, you realize that continuing to control everything costs too much energy, peace, clarity. The conscious decision to let go is born when you understand that forcing doesn't speed up the process, it only wears you down. Here, stop forcing stops being advice and becomes a daily choice. This decision is practical. It appears when you choose not to feed repetitive thoughts, when you interrupt self-sabotage, and when you trust even without external signs. Letting go of control means telling yourself, "I did my part today." This simple act reorganizes the mind, calms the body, and strengthens practical faith. When you let go consciously, there is no emptiness, there is space. Space for new ideas, new connections, new answers. This is when trust and receive begins to make real sense. And with this space created, something even more powerful emerges: the genuine ability to allow what is meant for you to reach you. Allowing yourself to receive is harder than it seems. Many people know how to ask, fight, and chase, but freeze when life begins to deliver. Receiving requires openness, worthiness, and inner rest. When you allow yourself to receive, you stop needing to prove your value. You truly understand that you are already enough. Practically, allowing yourself to receive starts with small actions, accepting help without guilt, celebrating wins without minimizing them, saying yes to what arrives without constant suspicion. This is spiritual surrender applied to daily life. When the mind stops resisting, the subconscious registers a new pattern: safety instead of scarcity. Receiving is also an act of faith. It's trusting that flow doesn't depend only on your effort. Trust and receive is not passivity, it's alignment. And the more you open yourself to receive with gratitude, the more you realize there is something greater sustaining the process. This openness prepares the final ground, fully trusting divine movement, even without understanding every detail. Trusting the divine process means resting without stopping your walk. It's understanding that not everything needs to be understood to work. When you choose trust in the divine process, something organizes within you: urgency fades, comparison weakens, and inner peace begins guiding your decisions. This trust is built daily, not through grand declarations. It shows up when you act with integrity without immediate return, when you maintain faith despite silence, when you choose good without guarantees. This is practical faith lived in daily life, aligned with defined purpose and the certainty that a greater flow supports everything. In the end, trusting the divine process is living with less fear and more presence. It's accepting that the path also teaches, adjusts, and prepares you. When you let go, everything arrives because resistance no longer exists. And with this mature trust, the cycle closes not as an ending, but as a more conscious beginning. If you've made it this far, you already realize that the real movement isn't running faster, it's aligning better. How many times have you tried to control everything and ended up exhausted? And how many times, when you let go of control, did you feel a strange, almost uncomfortable but real peace? The question now is simple and deep: what would change in your life if you decided to trust the process starting today? Perhaps the greatest invitation here is this: stop living like someone who's always trying to reach something and start living like someone who already has. When faith and trust are present, the mind slows down, the heart expands, and life finds space to act. Stop chasing and everything arrives isn't an empty promise, it's an inner posture. What is meant for you doesn't require desperation, it requires alignment. So how about choosing one area of your life today to practice this consciously? Less force, more presence. Less pressure, more spiritual surrender. As Napoleon Hill taught, the mind must be prepared to receive what it wishes to attract. The decision is yours now: keep forcing or trust and receive. If this content spoke to you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every week, you'll find deep reflections, simple practices, and truths that calm the mind and strengthen faith.